Welcome, everyone, to Dead Talk Live. And tonight we have a very special guest with us, Chandler Riggs, who we all know, of course, as Carl Grimes from The Walking Dead. Chandler, thank you so much for being here tonight. How are you doing?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Doing great. Thank you.
It is my pleasure, and I know a lot of people are excited about this chat. And I tried researching this online. It was made really big news that you were going to college after high school and you got accepted to several universities, but I could never find out, did you actually go to college? And if you did, which one did you go to?
Yeah, my plan was to actually go to the University of Georgia since my mom went to UGA and I am from Georgia myself. So it was actually the one of the closer colleges that I could go to while being on The Walking Dead at the same time. So I was kind of hoping to do that and do the show at the same time.
Hmm.
So I got my dorm, I got everything, all my classes set up and everything, and then I found out that my character wasn't going to be on The Walking Dead anymore. So I kind of decided to switch gears and try to move out to LA and try to further pursue acting and kind of ride off of the wave of The Walking Dead and
Hmm.
try to land something else. So yeah, I did ended up not going to school. I figured a degree in sociology, probably that's what I would have majored in, probably wouldn't get me very far in the world of acting.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Now, I know while you're in high school and you're on a TV production, they have tutors that come and help you out with schoolwork. Uh, when it comes to college, I would assume that would be a whole different ball game. If you had gone to college, and let's say, and you remained on The Walking Dead, I assume that would have been all like virtual classes and stuff, correct?
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a mostly actually in-person classes with maybe one or two virtual classes, because when I was in high school and on The Walking Dead, I would only miss classes in the first semester, and my teachers were understanding. They knew that I wasn't just skipping school. They knew that
Hmm.
I was going to work, and they were all, pretty cooperative and willing to work with me. So and they knew that I was getting all my work done and all that stuff. So I figured that if I'm, taking college level classes in high school and these teachers are acting, this cool about it, then I'm hoping that professors at college would kind of be the same way.
Exactly.
But yeah. So I kind of just planned on commuting back and forth between the show and school and just, try it out and see how it goes. If it works, that's great. If it doesn't, then, it is what it is. But
Now, your career started from a very, very young age. Would you say it was your inclination that pulled you towards entertainment, or would you say it was more your parents' influence? Which of the two was the greater force?
a little bit of both. My parents kind of exposed me to it a little bit. With my mom is super into theater. She runs her own theater company, and my dad not as much. He has he has a little bit of stage fright, but he is in a band and he loves performing. So I got a little bit of taste of that when I was a lot younger, like 3 or 4, and my parents would have to bring me to rehearsals and stuff like that. And I just really wanted to be on stage and kind of just went from there. I booked a couple of things in theater. I went in to do some commercials here and there, got an agent, a couple of small movies, and then Walking Dead.
Now, leading to The Walking Dead, you had met Gail Ann Hurd on a TV movie called The Wrong Man. She was the executive producer. Is that how you got the audition? Did you audition for the role of Carl Grimes on The Walking Dead because you having worked with Gail Ann in the past?
Yeah, honestly, I it was just a random stroke of luck. I got the audition as any other actor in Atlanta, at 10, would get the audition, and I sent in another tape for a callback, and then they called me in to do an in-person audition, and that's where I saw Gail again. But I don't know. I like to think that it probably had, her being a part of The Walking Dead and The Wronged Man probably had some sort of, probably, made my chances a lot better. But yeah, no, I still auditioned for it and still had to, go up against a bunch of other, 10-year-old kids in Atlanta.
Wow. And you being a Georgia native, living in Atlanta, and now Atlanta is just such a huge movie, television filming spot. How does that make you feel about your home state?
It's great. Yeah. I mean, it's super super cool seeing so many people from Georgia work in the industry and to meet other people in the industry who are also from Georgia. It's really cool to kind of feel that. It's awesome. And it's great because whenever I have a project that films in Georgia, I get to go back and hang out with my family and it's hang out with all my old friends. So it's not too bad.
That's awesome. Now, you said you moved out to LA to further pursue your acting career. I mean, knowing that Atlanta and Georgia are such huge hotspots, would you recommend to others to, if they really want to pursue acting, to go to LA, or is Georgia like the new LA?
Well, I think that in everywhere outside of LA is where everything films, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, I feel like a lot of things cast out of LA. So, I mean, me personally, I feel like I have a better shot landing like, those series regular roles or those lead roles if I'm in LA and I can go in person to an audition and leave a good impression versus if I'm just sending in a tape from anywhere else. But I mean, that's not to say that that can't lead to something big. I mean, that's how I got cast on Walking Dead just as a local. So
Yeah.
you really never know with anywhere you are or anything you're auditioning for.
Now, looking back, all right, your time on The Walking Dead, you spent 8+ seasons on that show from the very beginning till halfway through season 8. Looking back now, you're 22, I believe, and your career, do you feel from such a young age, being on such a hugely popular show and playing a very huge fan favorite in that show, do you feel for the long run, has it helped or hurt your career going forward?
I'm sorry. Do you mind saying that one more time? Has
Basically, being from a young age and landing on The Walking Dead, which is became a huge show. All right, 15 to 20 million viewers per week at its peak. You being a huge fan favorite on that show. Looking back now and looking forward into the future in regards to your career, do you think getting that role and being in it for so long has helped or potentially hurt your career moving forward?
I understand. Sorry about that.
No, no.
No, I think it's put my name on the map, which is more than I could ever ask for. I got like the luckiest gig of a lifetime. I mean, career stuff aside, like having the experience of growing up on a set around so many incredible people, cast and crew, it's an unforgettable experience that I will cherish like forever. And but career wise, I think it's made it harder in some areas of being typecasted,
Hmm.
but it's also made it better because it's opened up so many doors that I never would have had otherwise.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I feel like the good outweighs the bad.
That's true. Now, entertainment is a brutal business. I mean, you got to really have a passion to endure all the stuff that goes on within entertainment. Given the opportunity, if yourself today, 22-year-old Chandler Riggs, can go and talk to your 11-year-old self back in 2010, what would be the main thing you would want to get across to yourself?
Oh man, I feel like I went back and rewatched some old like scenes and episodes, and I was like, man, I really wish I just like paid attention to the other actors and how they did stuff because the other actors they're so good in so many cool scenes and it makes me really wish that I had like not paid more attention but asked more questions and learned more
Yeah.
from the other actors there.
Okay, that's fair. Season 3 is when the show really started to take off. It's also a season where we see Carl, your character, going through some big changes. There's animosity between Carl and Rick. Carl blames Rick for the death of his mom, Laurie, and of course, just being a teenager and stuff like that. So, this is sort of like a two-part question. As a 14-year-old teenager, how did you handle all the real life attention you were getting from fans of the show? And the second part is, did you use you actually being a teenager at the time, the personal feelings that you were getting from your fans and your family, and put that into the character of Carl?
Well, to answer the first part to your question, Walking Dead kind of it snowballed over time, so it wasn't just like an instantaneous, like it wasn't like I was cast on the show at its peak. Since I was there from the beginning, I was there when no one cared about it. I did conventions right off the bat. From like I started going to conventions and appearances and whatnot, like in November, December of 2010, and it was no one really cared about The Walking Dead. I mean, you had like those people that were diehard fans of the comics, but outside of that, everyone thought that a zombie TV show was never going to succeed, and that no one cared about zombies at the time anyway. It was all about vampires and Vampire Diaries and Twilight. So getting to see it kind of like ramp up over time and be a really gradual thing, it never felt like I was like thrown into it, or felt like I was overwhelmed, because it was such like a slow burn up. But to answer your other question, I think the character kind of just became a part of me over time. I mean, when you start playing a character at 10 years old and you play him for years and years, it just becomes just second nature. And so everything that that you are kind of bleeds into the character, and everything kind of just gets all muddy. So a lot of times I would use things from my personal life, as any other actor would, to inflate certain performances that need to be inflated, or vice versa. There's a lot of things that I kind of tapped into to try and make it better and more believable.
When you got cast for the role at such a young age, who helped you understand, the importance of Carl Grimes in the overall aspect of the show and the franchise? Were you allowed to read the comics? Were you allowed to read any of the source material? Did one of the producers, directors come and explain it to you? How did that work out?
I was so when I got the audition for the show, my dad and we went to the local comic book store and picked up the first couple of volumes of The Walking Dead. So right off the bat, I knew that Carl was a really important character, and so when I landed the role, I was so stoked, because it was such a cool character. Like, it only 60 or 70 issues were out at the time, but I was beyond excited. Like, I was I thought it was the coolest thing to get to play such a cool character. And I knew, like, before I started on the show, that it was going to be a pretty cool character. I was really stoked.
I have had the privilege of talking somewhere between 25 to 30 members of the cast who have come and gone throughout the years, and they all say the same thing. Great set to work on, family environment, very welcoming, led by Andrew Lincoln for the majority of the time. For you personally, was there anybody on the cast that really went out of their way to make you feel comfortable, make you understand, help you in any way? Was that Andrew, or was it someone else?
Yeah, I feel like Andy, because I had so many scenes with him, he was just the best like role model for me to have there on set, of just someone coming up and being like top to bottom prepared every day that he shows up. Like, it blew me away how prepared that dude was walking onto a set. It's crazy. He knew like every single word on the script for the whole week, and he even knew my lines and everybody else's lines. Wow. And like all of the like stage direction, and it was crazy to to work with someone that was that into everything. It was so cool. So yeah, I definitely have to say Andy. He was and he was always so engaged with my family. And when I bring my friends to set, he's just great, just an all around an incredible guy to work with and be around.
Now, The Walking Dead not being your first time on in front of a camera, you had done shorts, you had done a TV movie before that. Was coming onto that set with that group of people, not knowing what the future of this show and the odds were against you guys. Did you feel that very warm family connection really build up quickly?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you were saying, it's just we didn't know how the audience was going to react to it. We didn't At the end of the first season, we were all crying and hugging each other because we thought we were never going to see each other again. It's just it was one of those things that no one really knew if it would go anywhere. And at the same time, we were all pouring our heart and soul into every scene, every moment because it demanded it. There's very few other shows where you're out in the sun like all day long, every single day for months at a time in the middle of the summer in Georgia. It's like the hottest thing imaginable.
Oh yeah.
So to work on a set like that and to be around, to grow up around people like that, absolutely connected. I had that like family type connection right off the bat.
Your character, when we first were introduced to Carl, was 8. Okay, you were actually 11 in real life, so your ages were really close in real life compared to the character. As your character progressed and it went into 8+ seasons, did you find using you were finding that you were using a lot of your own real life experiences and pouring it into the character?
Yeah, well, fortunately on the show we never really established, like, they never said Carl's age or like his birthday or anything like that. And I think that was intentional because they didn't want me to come back one year and be like 8 feet tall. You know what I mean? It's just like just a gamble that they had kind of had to take. Um yeah, I mean, I absolutely, like I was saying earlier, every growing up, I mean, I went to high school. I lived like a normal life outside of the show, and I think having that, like being able to just go and hang out with friends after work, after filming, I think that really helped kind of shape myself and Carl at the same time, because I don't think Carl would have that same just like heavy mature feel that he had
Hmm.
if I hadn't had those experiences when I was younger.
Now you have done a lot of horror. Even outside of your time on The Walking Dead, you have done quite a bit of horror. Going back to The Wrong Man and into The Walking Dead, were you a fan of horror movies and horror television, or were you just indifferent to it? And how did those feelings change once you got on the set of The Walking Dead?
Well, I mean, I was 10 when I started on the show, so I wouldn't I think even if I liked horror movies, I don't think I would have even really knew
Yeah.
what it was like, So I my dad had showed me a couple of Frank Darabont films to kind of like be like, hey, this is the dude that you're working with. This is pretty cool. But outside of that, I wouldn't say that I was a horror fan, and I wouldn't say that I'm a horror fan now, because at the end of the day, The Walking Dead isn't really a horror show. It's classified like in categories and everything. It's categorized as a horror show, but I think it's pretty far from horror at this point. It's always been about the human interactions and the drama like between interpersonal relationships. It's never about the horror.
I 100% agree. You could have put it in like a big rat apocalypse and the world was being attacked by giant rats. It doesn't matter. The show has always been about the characters. That's what made it special. And the zombies are just what are there to put the characters in the situations that they have to face. Throughout The Walking Dead, you have seen many actors come and go. Whose departure left you feeling with that sense of loss? Was there anybody that you really missed after they left the show?
Oh man.
Because there've been
I
so
mean,
many.
yeah, losing any actor that had to leave the show was always pretty rough. But I think one of the hardest ones for me was when Sarah Wayne Callies, the woman who played Lori on
Lori.
the show, yeah, when she had to leave the show, it was pretty rough. Just because for the last like 3 years, I had spent a lot of time with her. She had helped me with my homework. She had kind of like you know, I wouldn't say parented, but she was a great, kind of like Andy, a great role model for me to have on set. And so when she had to leave the show, and have it be a lot earlier than what I was anticipating, having read the comics, it was that was pretty hard. But that's just the nature of the show. I mean, it has dead in the name of it, so you kind of have to assume that characters are gonna die.
A huge part of The Walking Dead's success is its ability to continue to shock viewers. And you can't overlook the way that Laurie, Sarah, left the show. Your character had to shoot her. And the way her departure was, it raised a lot of question marks. There was never a body found or anything like that. Do you know, was there any kind of talk in the way that she left the show? Was it ever open to her possibly coming back? Or that was just the viewers looking into stuff that wasn't really there?
Yeah, I mean, most like off-screen deaths mean that they're dead. I didn't find it really necessary for them to show her body, even if to just like prove to the viewers that she's dead. I felt like that would kind of take away from the emotional impact from it in the first place. So yeah, no, any like hint of her coming back was her actually coming back as her like ghostly kind of version that Rick was chasing around the prison when he was going all crazy.
So tell me, what was your reaction when you read that script and it was Carl that puts his own mom down? How did you feel about that?
Oh man, I mean, I was 12, so it was like it's a very heavy thing for anyone to have to do, let alone a kid. And man, to be honest, I can't remember even that much of like when I was reading the script, but it's just like I just remember being just really bummed out about it, about
Yeah.
her having to leave in the first place. It was less about the characters and what my character did. It was just her having to leave that was really bumming me out.
The show has always made it a point to show the characters and the events that happen in those characters' lives that help them go on to the next level. Like, for example, your character, Carl, having to shoot your mom, Lori, on the show was a pivot moment for Carl, okay? Out of all the pivot moments that your character had to face throughout 8+ seasons, which one do you believe was the most intense for your character, Carl, to endure?
Oh man. Uh
And there were quite a few. I mean, like I said, season three was a big transformational season, going on to season four, and then finally reconciling Carl with Rick.
yeah, I think one of the most pivotal moments was that whole the whole pudding episode. That's how everyone knows it as, but it was just such an incredible episode
Oh yeah,
because it was like a staple comic. That whole episode was right out of the comics, and when we got to that episode, and it's just I read page after page, and it was just like just me, me, me. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a lot of work. And it was like my first week of freshman year at high school was that episode that we had to film, and but it was really cool because my audition scene when I had initially auditioned for The Walking Dead was in that episode, and it would a different, completely different version of it, but it was still like the same kind of stuff, and it was just so cool to get to play all that out again and to kind of have a full like arc from the start of the episode to the end of the episode that kind of cascaded into the rest of the entire character. I mean, the rest of Carl is kind of built around the start, or the end of that episode is kind of when he kind of grows up and matures and becomes the man he is for the rest of the series.
That monologue that you have while Andy Rick is passed out on the couch after being literally beaten to within inches of his life from David Morrissey, the governor, and you dragged him, you take him to the house, and he's just passed out for days, and you're talking to him and he's passed out. That was such an intense performance by you. It was amazing.
Thank you.
You did a great job. And that leads me to, you had several great, more than several scenes, but another one that really stands out in my mind was in the episode, the one before where you actually left, where you're standing on top of the Alexandria walls and you're talking to Negan, giving time for the Alexandrians to escape, and you're basically buying time for them. And it's just you standing on top of that wall and Jeffrey down below, Negan, and you give that emotional speech, and his reaction to that speech was also very intense. Did you and Jeffrey kind of talk that out before you acted it out? Walk us through that sequence.
Well, I mean, most of the scenes that we do, in general, are kind of the same process. Some actors like to run the lines beforehand. Some actors like to just do it live. But I do remember going up to Jeffrey and being like, "Man, I think this is our last scene together." I'm like, this sucks. Like, having to do our last scene together, because I know Jeffrey was really looking forward to a lot of the stuff that our characters had in the comics, and knowing that we wouldn't be able to get to do that, he was kind of bummed out about it. But I think a lot of that emotion kind of ended up pouring out into the scene and just coming up in different ways, because Carl and Negan did share this kind of weird bond, and though they kind of were on opposite ends of things, and Carl was stalling, he was still, it was just a last push of like, maybe I can convince him to like put his guns down, and like maybe we can all actually live in peace. And maybe I can do this.
And we actually see that in the letter that Carl writes to all the people, because he knew he was dying. He was bit. He was living on borrowed time. Do you think those letters played a huge role at the end of the Savior War as to why Rick spared Negan's life?
Absolutely. I think that's 100% the reason that Carl died in the first place, was to push
you see, I just got to pause you right there. I've been saying that for a year and a half now to my audience. I'm like, the only reason I can think that the writers might have felt that they had to kill Carl off the show, because you got to understand the backlash, the backlash your death faced. I don't have to explain it to you. And I'm like, the only thing I can think of is they had to give a plausible explanation as to why Rick would spare Negan after Rick witnessed what Negan had done to Abraham and Glenn. So you agree 100% that is why.
I don't know for sure. I haven't had a one-on-one with the writers about it, because there's no point. But I kind of always assumed that was the reason, because they made Negan such a dislikable villain, they needed something so drastic to get Rick to not kill Negan, something as drastic as his son's dying wish.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah. So you have had a chance to work with many directors on your time on the show. The two prominent directors are, of course, Greg Nicotero and Michael Satrazemis. They are the ones back in the day who would flip-flop finales and premieres, those two. Greg tends to lean more into the gore aspect. They're both great directors. Greg tends to lean more into the gore aspect of an episode, while Michael tends to lean more into the character storytelling of of an episode, without putting you on the spot, which is the question is going to put you on the spot, and I apologize in advance. Which of those two styles, did you feel more comfortable working with?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to say because, I mean, at the end of the day, the directors are, you know, having worked with both of them since the very start of the show. I mean, it's great. It's always great working with them. And we did have other directors that would come in on a regular basis that I also loved working
Like
with.
Rosemary Rodriguez.
Yeah. Ernest Dickerson is another one who was just incredible and so much fun to work with. But working with Michael Satrazemis was just so much fun because he had been there as a camera operator actually in the first season, and then got bumped up to director of photography in some of the later seasons, and then got to direct in season 4. So seeing him kind of go on to do so many awesome things and get to work with him, it was just so much fun because he knew me and he knew how to like get me to do the things that he was envisioning. So it was just super easy for us to work together and for him to direct me. And I actually got the chance over this past summer to shadow Mikey while he was in Austin, Texas, shooting Fear the Walking Dead.
He told me.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, it was so much fun. So getting to shadow him and learn from him and see what he's, and just pick his brain and see what he's learned over the last, God, he's been doing this his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool to see the other side of it. So yeah, working with Mikey it's great all around. But everyone has, like I was saying, everyone has, their own things that make them really good at what they do.
Exactly. And what I love about Mikey and respect the most is, he's like, just focus on the content. That's what he cares about. He cares about the final product. Everything else is just noise. Focus on the content. Since you took an interest in shadowing him as a director, is there any interest for you down the line in your career to go behind the camera and do some work there?
Yeah, well, at the time I was working on developing a show of my own, but it's since fallen through. But yeah, I mean, I've absolutely had my interest spiked in directing and writing and producing. So I'm trying to get some stuff of my own off the ground here and there. I'm also still auditioning for like a million things like every week. So it's all pretty, I'm very much so staying very hands-on in all aspects of the business.
Awesome. Now, going back to your death, if we can just touch on that for a little bit. Like I said, the reaction, there was a big backlash to your death. The show lost a lot of fans, my daughter being one of them. Your death was the last episode she watched. What were some of the reactions you were getting personally through social media in regards to Carl's passing?
Same kind of thing that you're probably imagining me getting. I mean, it's the same, just people being devastated and heartbroken by the character. But it's really sad. But at the same time, it means that I did my job, which is all that I can do, is just do my job and do it well. And when I get people reaching out to me and saying these things, it means a lot, because it means that I succeeded in making the audience feel something and be connected to a character.
Did it ever surprise you throughout the years just how popular Carl became with the fans, and how much of an inspiration your character and you were to the fans? Did that weigh on you as a responsibility in any way? How did you handle it?
Well, people forget that everyone, well, most people that were fans of the show during like season 2, season 3 hated Carl. Like, I would get people come up to me at conventions saying, "Man, I hate your character. You killed Dale, man. Like, that is the worst." And so getting to go from a character that I would straight up get everyone saying that they hate me, to go to a character that is more of a fan favorite and that people are excited to watch every week, it's really cool, and a position that it's just great. I love it. Every aspect of it, even people hating my character. It's like I was saying earlier. It means that I'm doing my job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before that fateful meeting with Scott Gimple, where he told you that Carl was going to be killed off, did you have this sort of false sense of ease that Carl was going to last the whole run of the show?
Um. Yeah. I mean, having been a fan of the comics, I was expecting it to kind of be there for the long run. I had just taken care of contractual stuff with with the network before the season, and I had college all set in stone. I had just bought a house down near the set, so I had a pretty good setup for the next few years. And then then I found out about it. But that's just how it
It
is. It's
is,
just
yeah.
a part of the show, and yeah. I mean, I was pretty bummed out at first, but it's being off the show has kind of allowed me to play other roles and connect with other audiences in ways that I never could have done on Walking Dead, and get to be an actual feel like I can be an actual actor where I'm playing multiple different roles and I'm not just playing one character. So it's been really, really fun these last few years.
Now that several years have passed and, everything has sort of quieted down, looking back at that time where you found out that Carl was going to be leaving and then that episode airing, how do you feel about how it all played out? Any regrets? There was a lot of media attention, a lot of writers weighed in, AMC, your camp. Do you wish you could go back and things were done differently?
In terms of like the writing of it, like the
Well,
how the
yeah,
episode played out.
basically, no, no, not the episode. I mean, that was done well. You were given a great death, and you were given a death where you basically, well, you knew you were dying, and you sacrificed yourself to save your family, which was the Alexandrians. I'm talking about the media, and of course, you can't control the media, but the backlash, AMC, your camp. Uh, Now that everything has settled down and you've had several years to absorb everything, do you wish it was handled differently by AMC? Do you wish some of it might have been handled differently by your camp? Or, it is what it is. Let's just move on.
Yeah, that's kind of the mentality I have towards it. I mean, um, there are some sides to it that have specific point of views that I might always not agree with. So it's just, I don't know. At the end of the day, it's been like 4 years
Yeah.
since then, so I don't like to dwell on things that long ago and worry about that kind of thing. So I'm really not. I'm just more focused on
The here
how
and
to
now.
kind of, yeah, exactly, on kind of moving forward and doing other projects and expanding, and not really kind of keeping myself in a box.
So let's talk about your death dinner. The infamous Walking Dead death dinners that the cast gives when fellow cast members go away. Did you get a pretty good death dinner? Did they celebrate, give you a good going away party?
Yeah, it was just man, it was so sad. Like uh we had it at my house, and my mom had gotten like a catering service together. So yeah, it was just like everyone like had something to say about how they felt about my time on the show and me leaving and everything, and it was just like, yeah, it was pretty sad. So
Have you kept in
yeah, there's not
touch?
much else to say about it.
Have you kept in touch with some of the cast members and crew and whatnot?
Yeah, I get to see a bunch of the other cast members at conventions here and there, and my roommate is Caitlin, the girl who played Enid in Walking Dead. My roommate is her boyfriend, so
Oh,
she's over at my house all the time.
wow.
So it's never. I always get to hang out with some of the people from the set. It's never too bad.
That is so cool. Now, a lot of actors, when they leave a role, they sort of stop following the series. A lot of them have told me that it's sort of their way to break away and move on to different characters. Is that true with you? Did you stop watching The Walking Dead after you left the show? Or did you continue watching it after you were gone?
Well, I was the biggest fan of the show while I was on the show. I think I watched the show and was like really religious about it and keeping up with the comics and everything while I was on the show, more so than anyone else on the cast and crew and everyone. So even when I left the show, I've been keeping up with it. I haven't seen season 10 or 11 yet, but I've seen up through season 9, and I was waiting to binge it on Netflix. So it's out and it's waiting. I just gotta find some time to sit down and watch the whole season. But I try to keep up with it because, you know, I get questions like this of if I still keep up with the show, and I would love to say yes, that I've seen every episode and I'm up to date, but I haven't yet. I am planning on doing it though, because at the end of the day, I do love the show. It's a great show, and
What a lot of people don't know is that when you're in entertainment, the time that you have to enjoy entertainment is greatly reduced.
Yeah.
There's just no time to just sit back and watch something that you want to watch. So moving forward now, what is your goal in regards to your career? Do you want to strictly concentrate on acting? You said you tried getting a couple of projects and trying to get a couple of projects off the ground. What is your like immediate near-term goal?
Honestly, just to get something off the ground, whether it's acting related or writing related or directing related, anything. I have a few things in the works, so I'm trying to get any of them off the ground. My end goal is always to, you know, play a part in a story that the audience can any audience can connect to and relate to and distract themselves with and help them in some way with whatever it is that they're going through. I recently got the chance to play a character struggling with depression and anxiety and all this stuff. So getting to kind of tackle that and help people going through that, to give a character that people can relate to, incredible. It's it's an amazing feeling, and it's something that I'm constantly chasing after.
Do you want to continue on TV? Do you want to do more films? What would be your preference, if there is a preference?
I'm doing anything that comes my way. Yeah, I prefer television more, just because it's you get the chance to have a longer run for something. You get the chance to really flesh out your character and let it develop and become better over time. Well, I feel like a movie is a little bit more limited in scope, but still accomplishing the same thing. So, yeah, that's kind of why I'm saying just anything that comes my way
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Chandler, you have a bright future ahead of you. You're a talented
Thank you.
actor. You have given us some of the best moments that will live well beyond our time on The Walking Dead for generations to come. Thank you so much for your portrayal of Carl Grimes. I mean, I just can't say enough on the work that you did. So just thank you so much. Before we go, are there any final thoughts you want to share with our audience?
Just thank you guys for being a part of the ride this whole time, for supporting me, for you know, just being there every step of the way. If it weren't for you guys, I wouldn't have a job. So, you know, thanks to you for watching every episode and sticking with it, sticking with all my projects. It's really, really cool, and I cannot thank you enough.
Your fans love you. You're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank Chandler Riggs for being our guest tonight. I want to thank our audience for tuning in. We had a nice big crowd tonight. On behalf of Chandler and myself, stay safe, have a great weekend, and stay walking. Good night, everybody.
Okay. Good night, guys.